Hey there, everybody! Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me on this. I'm hoping beautiful Friday night for you wherever you are. It's okay here today, I guess. I haven't really gone out. It's been raining all day, but it's not bad. I've been inside comfortable in the air conditioning all day, so hopefully you can say the same. As usual, the deal is that I will be answering questions that were pre-submitted by my Patreon patrons and my channel members for the first section of the show. So if you are joining me live and you have a question for me that you want to ask in the live chat or just something you want to talk to me about or whatever, or most especially if you were planning on being generous and giving me a super chat during the course of the show, please, if possible, if you're going to be able to stick around, hang on to that until I get through the patron and the member questions, and then I will hang out with the live chat for the remainder of the show. So let's get started without further ado by turning to the patron and member questions that were pre-submitted throughout the week. And the first of those comes from Carlisle the Cinephile, who says, "Hello there, Steve. Are there any pieces of media that you don't enjoy, but you're reluctant to admit that you don't like them because a large section of the people who also dislike it are toxic and reactionary? Two examples for me are the 2016 Ghostbuster film and the video game Life is Strange. The former because I just don't think it's all that funny and that the magic of the original will never be recaptured, and the latter because I think the half of the relationship that forms the emotional center of the story is completely repugnant and emotionally abusive. But a lot of people don't like those properties for really shitty and hateful reasons. Are there any properties where you feel the same way? Are there any properties where you're like, sure, I don't like the insert piece of media here, but it isn't for the reasons you think? I swear. There probably are. But I've been thinking about it ever since you posted the question, Carlisle, and I can't really think of any that are like big examples of that for me. I can think of like I have I've tried to moderate my hatred of the Star Wars prequels. I don't think the Star Wars prequels are any better than I ever thought they were. And when Jason and I reviewed them on late seating over the last several years, I mean, I don't think I didn't give a remotely positive review to any of them. Like I think all three of them are absolute dreck. I don't think except for the lightsaber duel in Phantom Menace. I don't think any of them have any redeeming qualities at all. I think they're terrible. But you know, so much of the like angry reactionary movie critic subgenre of YouTube and of the internet in general was birthed from fanboys who were disgruntled about the prequels sucking. So I try to avoid that if I can. I don't, talk about that. So, and plus, honestly, I'm not that upset about it. It doesn't mean all that much to me, you know. But and honestly, the one that I'm gonna have to think about probably in the next few months, depending on how the topic polls for my Trek Actually videos go, is Loaxana Troy. And I don't know. I mean, I don't have a video about her scheduled, but I have one sort of in my list of possible upcoming topics. And if I put that topic in one of my polls coming up in the next couple of months and it wins, I'm going to do that video. And I'm going to be very careful to do it in a way that does not come across as shitting on people who do like that character, because there are a lot of people who do like the character of Loaxana Troy. And I don't want to, and I don't want to come across as, as disliking her for reasons that will inadvertently put me in alignment with the kind of shitty people that you're talking about there. I don't want to make a video where I sound just like, a gamer gator or something, even though that's not my intention, and that's not where, and I don't think that's where my negative feelings about that character come from at all. But I don't want to inadvertently, if someone just happens to watch that video and hasn't watched any of my other shit, has no idea who I am, and just says, oh, here's this guy who's really hating on Loaxana Troy. I hate that character too, because I hate all women, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to do that kind of thing. So I'm mindful of stuff like that. But I can't think of any particular movie or franchise or property where I think, oh, I hate this, but I don't want to talk about it too much because other people who hate it are really, really awful people. So no, I personally, I can't think of any, but because like, you know, I actually kind of like the 2016 Ghostbuster film. I don't think it's as good as the original, but it did make me laugh a lot. Like I thought it was. I guess I disagree with you about that. Like I mean, I don't think it's as good as the original, but it did make me laugh a lot. So I can't go with you on that. And I've never played that video game you're talking about, so I don't know. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I think it's a reasonable thing to be aware of and be concerned about. But it's hard for me to think of any specific examples myself. Kari Getz says, if you had to pick a favorite episode from each Star Trek franchise, which episodes would you choose? Okay. Favorite episode of TOS is Amok Time. Favorite episode of TNG is probably Chain of Command or maybe Tapestry. Favorite episode of Deep Space Nine is The Visitor, which is also my favorite episode of any Star Trek thing, period. Favorite Voyager episode is probably The Thaw. Um, favorite Enterprise episode, I can't even remember the title of it, but it's the one where I think they have like a close encounter with a comet, and it also has the scene where the crew is answering questions sent to them by by school children. That's the one where Trip like pauses the recording and goes, "Excuse me, a poop question, sir?" I can't remember the title of that episode to save my life, but I think it's from the first season and it's really good. The Borg episode, Regeneration of Enterprise, is shockingly great too. Like for a cynical ratings ploy, that's like a really good episode. That's better than any of the Borg episodes on Voyager. What else? Discovery. I can't remember the titles are tough with Discovery because it's so serialized. The from the second season, the Saru episode where Saru goes back to his home planet and he thinks he's going to die, but then it turns out it's just like the next phase of his development. That's a really good one. That's one that stands out to me. And let me see, Lower Decks. God, I have no idea. Uh, Whichever the one was that had Badgie in it. No. The I can't remember. I can't remember the episode titles, but the one with when Tendi like screws up the other guy's attempt to reach Nirvana, and she spends the rest of the episode trying to make up for it, and then the guy is a total jerk, and he finally does reach Nirvana at the end, and he sees a smiling koala, and he freaks out. He's like, "What is the koala smiling about? What is it smiling about?" Um, that one for Lower Decks, and I forgot Picard. So my favorite episode of Picard, um, the Riker episode, obviously the one where he visits Riker and Troi, Nepenthe. That's my favorite Picard episode. So I think those are my favorite episodes of all of the shows. Favorite original series movie is Wrath of Khan. Favorite TNG movie is First Contact, and favorite Kelvinverse movie is Star Trek Beyond. So there you go. Those are my favorites of all of the different iterations of the franchise. Good question. Thank you. General Contact Unit Problem Child says, am I being a realist or am I catastrophizing? Suppose Manchin can't be persuaded to break the filibuster. With no voting rights bill, red state elections will become shams. And because of this, the GOP will take both houses in 2022. In 2024, Biden will lose the presidency to a Trump-style Republican. Once in total control of the government, the Republicans will install even more voter restrictions that will effectively mean one-party rule for the foreseeable future. With total control of the government and the courts, the GOP will do everything they can to suppress worker, LGBTQ, women's, and POC rights. How far this will go is hard to say, but it may well involve actual genocides. Last week, I read a load of articles about the Manchin deadlock, and I started wondering what might happen if he can't be moved. And I came up with the above chain of events. I honestly can't decide if I'm just catastrophizing or if everyone else is just not admitting what's actually at stake. I think it can be a measure of both. I do think the things you're describing are pretty close to worst case scenarios, but I also think that especially the Democrats in the House and the Senate, most of them, not all of them, but most of them don't really seem to be taking it seriously, at least not taking it as seriously as they should be. And Manchin is a prime example of that. Manchin seems like the poster child for the Democrat who just doesn't get what game is being played here. And to a somewhat lesser degree, I think Biden is the same way. I think Biden is starting to get it more than Manchin does, but there's still this yearning for bipartisanship. And like, guys, we're past that. This is not the game anymore. Because you're right, if the GOP is allowed to take the kind of control that you're describing in your question, and if they do put in place the kind of voter suppression policies that you're talking about and that they are trying to put in place right now in various jurisdictions where they have the power to do so, it's going to be bad news. Like it's not going to go good for those of us who are into the whole democracy free election type thing. And so, I mean, I think you're catastrophizing in the sense that I don't think all of those things are a given. I don't think it's inevitable that all of those things will happen, but they're definitely possibilities. And the reason why we are this close to these sorts of things happening is because Democrats like Manchin and like Pelosi and a lot of other sort of more moderate establishment Democrats who are trying to do the right thing, but not trying hard enough and don't seem nearly to grasp the urgency of the situation, just don't seem as worried about all this as they should be. I mean, if Joe Manchin really knew what was up, really grasped the danger that we are in, would he really, and Kirsten Sinema and Biden, and would they really be torn about this? Would they really think, oh gee, I don't know though, the filibuster, or would they be like, oh shit, these Republicans are trying to do serious harm to our democracy, and we need to stop them from doing it. And if that means getting rid of the filibuster, then God damn it, that's what we need to do. Like it seems like that's the situation. And if Manchin and the others who are sort of dragging their feet are trying to be centrists in this or holding out for Republican votes, if they really got it, I don't think it would be that much of a problem. Because I mean, what are you going? You're going to choose the filibuster over the survival of democracy? Like you're going to choose the filibuster over stopping a political party with an extremely loud and influential and determined fascist wing from taking even more power than it already has. Is that really a choice that you have to think about? So yeah, I mean, like I say, I think maybe you're catastrophizing a little in terms of how bad things are going to get, but you are completely right that there are a lot of people in power who have the power to at least do something about this and are not taking it nearly as seriously as they need to be. So we're completely on the same page there. Kelly O'Hara says, are heroes really heroes if they fight in support of the status quo to the detriment of the people? I think that's kind of a black and white way to look at it. I think it depends on what is at stake in the fight. I mean, if the heroes are constantly defending the status quo and they are not fighting for something better than the status quo when they could easily do that, and they're defending the status quo just against all kinds of change, then yeah, I would say it would be a stretch to call them heroes. If you're defending the status quo no matter what, then I don't know if you're a hero. I don't think you're a hero. But if you are trying to stop things from getting worse, and you end up sort of as a de facto defender of the status quo, then I don't think it's fair to say, oh, you're no hero, you're just defending the status quo. Well, I mean, and actually Dana and I talked about this in one of our videos that we shot earlier this year about how, a lot of heroes, I think it was in one of our comment response videos, that, I mean, it is worth mentioning that a lot of superhero stories are constructed so that the hero is defending the status quo. And yes, they're defending the status quo against something even worse. So within the bounds of the story, the defense of the status quo is justified given the situation. But the fact remains, the story is still structured so that the thing that has to be preserved is the status quo. And it's completely valid to notice that and to point out that it's possible to write superhero stories where that is not the case. You don't have to write stories where heroes are defending the status quo against something even worse. You can write stories where heroes are pushing for something better than the status quo. And that is the source of the conflict. And that isn't done nearly as often. But no, I don't think it's fair to say that heroes are never heroes if they support the status quo. It depends on what they're supporting the status quo or what they're defending the status quo against. But generally speaking, yeah, superhero stories are written, I think, too often with the hero put in the position of defending the status quo. That's a good point. Orion McMurray, I have started collecting Star Trek novels after a long time of not doing so. What are your favorite books from Star Trek? Mine is the Kobayashi Maru. Well, unfortunately, you're kind of asking the wrong guy. I've never really read the books all that much. I read some of them when I was in middle school, so I'm going to take you way back. I remember really liking Imzadi. I remember liking Reunion. And I think my favorite was probably Federation by Judith and Garfield Reeve Stevens, which I read. I think it actually came out the same year as the Generations movie, and it's a similar story because, or I mean, the stories themselves aren't really similar at all, but the premise is broadly similar with both because it's a crossover story. Federation is a crossover story that brings the classic Enterprise crew and the TNG crew together. And they don't actually interact in the story, but there's a moment where the two ships kind of glimpse each other across an event horizon, which is actually really cool. And there are parallel stories where you follow Picard's crew and Kirk's crew in their own respective timelines as they're doing things that relate to the broader story. And there's also a Zephram Cochrane story that ties into everything else. And so it's a lot more complicated in terms of the plot than Generations. And it's, a lot better. It's a much better story than Generations was. But yes, that's probably my favorite Star Trek novel. But again, I mean, that came out in 94. Like I have not read any Star Trek novels probably in 25 years. It's just not something that I'm particularly interested. No, I take that back. I listened to the audiobooks of a couple of the Shatnerverse novels, and those are a hoot. I don't know if I would recommend them if you're wanting to read something that's actually got merit, like literary merit, but just as a lark, just as goofy, like I can't believe they published this type stuff, the Shatnerverse novels, the William Shatner Star Trek novels are a lot of fun. I'm going to do a video about them at some point. I know that topic has been on the poll before and it hasn't won yet, but I'm going to do a video about the Shatnerverse novels at some point because they're a lot of fun. Stephen G. Clenard says, are you doing anything special for Pride? I don't have any particular plans for Pride. No. There is a Pride event in Hagerstown, but I mean, like I'm a cis hetero guy. I don't, belong to any of the categories that Pride is there to celebrate. I mean, I support it. I think it's wonderful. But I don't plan to participate in any of it because it's not for me, it's for other people. And I think, I'm happy to let them have their celebration. I think they deserve it. So I know I have no plans for Pride. I am going to do a video, a Star Trek video, not next week, but the week after that, about shipping in Star Trek shows, like the popular characters that are sort of shipped together, and a lot of those are going to be same-sex couples because that's just the way it went in Star Trek fandom, where Star Trek fans that tend to do that a lot, that tend to ship characters, are often shipping same-sex couples together. So that's going to be sort of Pride themed, I guess, and I'll probably wear my Pride Star Trek shirt for that. But I mean, other than that, like personally, I don't have any plans to do anything for Pride. And I mean, I'm a boring old cis hetero guy. I don't have any. I don't really do anything special to mark Pride. I leave that to the folks that it's actually there for them to celebrate. Andrew Priest says, good evening, my friend. Hope you're taking care of yourself, staying safe, happy, and healthy. I was just wondering, as you're someone with their own page on Rational Wiki, I was wondering what secret beliefs you may have that are completely irrational. I, for example, am a medical physicist, and I'd like to think I have a good grasp on how the interneuronal connections in a person's brain form the basis of what we humans call a personality. Yet, in spite of all that, I still weirdly believe in the idea of a soul. How about you? Do you secretly believe in ghosts? Do you not believe in climate change? Do you secretly believe Republicans have a small vestigial heart? I don't believe in any of that stuff now. I used to believe in ghosts and an afterlife, and it would probably be more accurate to say I went through a phase where I really, really hoped that there were such things, because the idea of there being some part of us that survives death is very appealing to me, because I do not look forward to death. I do not welcome my own death. If there was like an option that said live forever, I would check the box without even thinking about it. Like I would be, and people say like, oh, but you get sick of it eventually. Well, I would wait. I mean, I would, it's like the ending to The Good Place, where they come up with the final door that you can go through to sort of end the afterlife. And you don't have to go through it. You can stay in the good place and have an afterlife that lasts forever and ever. But if you ever get to the point where you decide that you're done, existence is pretty much run out for you, you can step through the last door and end it, right? I don't think I would step through the last door. It's hard for me to imagine ever getting to a point where I'm like, I'm ready to end my existence. And it's, if it was completely my choice. So, I mean, the idea of surviving death in some way is very appealing to me. So I used to believe in stuff like that. And then I would, try really hard to believe it, even though I knew it wasn't true, or I knew there was no reason to think it was true. But no, right now, I don't really believe in anything like that. I think a lot of stuff like that is really cool. And there's a question coming up a little bit later that I want to sort of save some stuff for that, because it's a somewhat similar question. But there are irrational beliefs and things like that I think are really interesting to talk about and to explore, just as ideas or as like concepts, But in terms of things I actually believe, I can't really think of anything. David Colby says, I was thinking of Crusades recently. Crusades was a Babylon 5 spinoff, where Babylon 5 was like, oh, so you're just going to steal my premise, are you? Well, I'm going to steal your premise right back. It's about a highly advanced exploration ship traveling the galaxy to search out brave new worlds and such. And while I think Star Trek won't ever have a show where a bridge crew character is a literal wizard, because Paramount is run entirely by cowards who do not recognize my genius, Crusades did do something I found deeply enjoyable. They had a full spread of characters for the science department. Rather than a science officer, they had an astrophysicist, an astrobiologist, a xenoarchaeologist, and some more. It gave slightly more heft to the scientific scenes and was just more real feeling than one person whose job it was to know everything about science. Which leads me to my question. If you were going to pick bridge crew to focus on for a Star Trek show, what would one be? A wizard? No, I would not have one be a wizard. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. One of the thoughts I've had about the crew of Discovery is that it's like the entire show, it's like the whole crew is science officers. And that's one of the things I kind of like about it. Like if you think about the major characters, the major Starfleet characters in Discovery, Burnham, Saru, Tilly, Stamets, Culber, they all have, and Jet Reno when she pops in, like they're all either like actively working as basically science officers, or they have science officer in their background, because Saru was the science officer on the Shenzhou in the pilot episode, and then he was the first officer, after what went down in the pilot episode went down. But I mean, you have all these major characters with science in their background or engineering in their background. So it's like you have a show full of science officers, which I think is really interesting, especially in light of what you're describing there with the Crusade show, that there's not just a science officer. There are a lot of characters that are meant to have scientific backgrounds. So when there's a scientific problem, it's not like everybody just turn into Spock and going, what do we do? Or on TNG turning to Data, who was not even the science officer, and going, what do we do? Right. I think that's really interesting. But if I were going to pick a bridge crew for a Star Trek show, I mean, I would probably, I don't know. I would just pick the Deep Space Nine crew and call that a day. I don't know. And no, one would not be a wizard. I guess, I mean, if Cisco was going to have like his emissary powers, but he doesn't really have magic powers. No, there would be no wizard. No, there would be no wizard. Ohirno says, where do you live now? Looks like a cabin. It's cozy, lots of wood, and I imagine a lake in your backyard. Also, speaking of wooden houses, I built me and my children a tree house. You like climbing trees too. What kind of tree house are you working on? I live in Hagerstown. It's just a regular house. There's just wood paneling in the kitchen, which is where I record those Ask a Professional YouTuber videos. So there's wood paneling there, but it's just wood paneling. It's not actual wood. It's not a cabin. I have a nice little backyard, but there's no lake. Sorry, and I'm not working on any kind of a treehouse. Actually, it's funny for that's by the way, that's awesome that you're building a treehouse for you and your children. That's great. Um, I never had a treehouse. I had a beautiful big pine tree in my backyard when I was a kid. That I mean, and it's still there. It's still in my dad's backyard. That I would climb like in summertime when the weather was nice. I would climb it like every day, and it was enormous. And I didn't really feel like I needed a tree house because like this massive tree, you know what I mean? Like I could climb up there and find a branch to sit on and just sit up there for hours and like read a book or just look out over the town because it was tall enough I could look out over my town and over the field behind my house. And so I never really felt like, oh man, I wish I had a tree house because I would just climb up in this awesome tree. So I never had one and I never really felt like I was missing one. But, you know, if dad had said, hey, by the way, I'm building you a tree house, I would have been like, oh shit. Yeah. Okay, cool. Tree houses are awesome. I'm really, I'm really glad that you built yourself and your children. Incidentally, I guess they're invited too. Oh yeah, by building a treehouse for the kids. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, for the kids. Yep, that's what it's for. The kids. Oh yeah, it is big enough for an adult. Yeah, you noticed that. Yeah, it's like adult size, but it's for the kids. That's awesome. That's awesome. Russell or Kirak 2011. Another Star Trek question, my friend. I would like to know your thoughts on Section 31. One of my personal issues is how can Starfleet sanction Section 31 and consider the Maquis a threat? The other would be, why was there no mention of them in TNG or TOS, although those are typically during peaceful times? Anyway, as always, love to hear your thoughts, Russell. Well, thank you very much. My answer is going to be the kind of answer that drives other Star Trek nerds crazy, which is there was no mention of them in TNG or TOS because the concept hadn't been invented yet. The writers of Deep Space Nine came up with Section 31. So Section 31 wasn't mentioned in either of those shows because nobody had thought of it yet. That's the answer. And by the way, and I'm completely fine with that answer. Like, I don't feel the need. I got into this yesterday on Twitter with someone because I said something. I talked about it in the Firefly live stream with Dana on Wednesday that it annoyed me that they still had Jane say Goram in the movie instead of just having him say goddamn like an adult. And I posted on Twitter about it, and I was like, wow, a lot of you people are really like attached to the made up fake curse words that they give people in sci-fi shows when they can't actually swear. And I just think that's dumb. I just think it's dumb. And then someone replied and said, but that's already been canonically established as that's how they swear in that universe. And if you just had them all of a sudden using other swear words, then you'd have to come up with you'd have to change the mythology and you'd have to come up with some explanation as to why they're suddenly using different words. I'm like, oh my God, you're really overthinking this. No, you wouldn't. Like they just say different shit now. I'm not saying change the entire style of the dialogue. It just substitute the real curse words for the made up baby talk that you had them say because it was on TV and you couldn't get away with having someone say goddamn and shit. How hard is this? And because I know the real reason, which is that they couldn't get away with saying actual swears. And Joss Whedon just didn't feel like writing the dialogue where the characters didn't swear. He had to put baby talk in their mouths. Oh, they say these words instead of, they say ruttin instead of fucking, and they say goram instead of goddamn because, whatever. Because I can't be bothered to just write dialogue around the restrictions. I have to, make up silly words and put in their mouths. That then certain fans will get way too attached to. But I know the real reason. So I don't feel the need to make up some headcanon to explain it. I know the real reason. So as far as Section 31, it's not in TNG or TOS because when those shows were produced, it didn't exist. Nobody had thought of it yet. And as far as like, why would Starfleet sanction it, but consider the Maquis a threat? Because The Maquis are outsiders, and Section 31 are insiders. I mean, I guess you could call it hypocrisy, but it's a matter of self-interest. The Section 31's charter gives it the power to basically do whatever it needs to do to protect the interests of Starfleet and protect the interests of the Federation. So Section 31 is like the CIA. It's like asking, why is the United States government okay with the CIA, but they're not okay with, ISIS? Well, because ISIS are out there shooting in here. The CIA is in here shooting out there. And yeah, it might not be morally consistent, but when has that ever stopped anybody? So I think it's that, it's that Section 31 are on Starfleet side, and they're doing Starfleet's business. So of course Starfleet is okay with it. You could chalk it up to hypocrisy, but I mean, I think that's the reason, because that's the explanation for the real life equivalence of stuff like that. Jason Harding. Considering that Star Trek is now more than 50 years old, how and when will the franchise finally die? Or will it? Will it continue to capture a new generation of fans every 20 years or so? I will only accept my answer in High Klingon. And then there's something in Klingon that I have no idea how to pronounce. Biklubak bek takvis bich ech jaj. Is that anything? I don't know. And I looked it up. I looked it up in a Klingon dictionary, and it means something like "May you die with disgrace" or something like that. I don't know. I'm not really into the speaking Klingon thing either. I'm just not. I have fellow Star Trek fans who I love and respect dearly, who are like fluent in Klingon, and it's a huge source of entertainment and joy for them. And I wish them nothing but happiness. But I'm not remotely into it at all. Like I had a Klingon dictionary when I was like a teenager, or maybe even younger, when I was like maybe in 7th or 8th grade. I bought a copy of the Klingon dictionary. I like thumbed through it for a few minutes after I bought it. Or maybe I even got it as a gift. Maybe someone gave it to me as a gift because they knew I was into Star Trek. And I like looked through it for like 10 minutes and was like, oh, okay. Like it's just not how I engage with Star Trek. It's not the part of Star Trek that gets me there, that I'm interested in. So I cannot give you the answer in High Klingon. I'm sorry, my friend. I do not speak. I speak virtually no Klingon. I know, what is it? I know some of the phrases from the Klingon dictionary. I think nuchnek, which means "what do you want," which is like a greeting. And, the stuff they say on the show a lot, like kapla and patak, filthy patak, stuff like that, that they say a lot. But that's it. But to answer your question in English, I think it will continue to capture a new generation of fans every 20 years or so until the sun explodes and swallows the earth. I think that's probably what will happen. Cave or Cave or however that's pronounced. I apologize for not knowing how to pronounce your name. In several episodes of Futurama, the actors from TOS are appearing as guest stars, but there is a specific episode called Where No Fan Has Gone Before as an homage to TOS. My question is, what is your opinion of that episode? That is, if you have watched it. I love that episode. I love Futurama just in general. I think Futurama is an awesome show, and the Star Trek episode of Futurama is amazing. It's amazing. My favorite joke in it is probably the saddest joke, which is, I think by the time they did that episode, James Doohan was dead. And I think DeForest Kelley was dead too. So there were 2 original cast members that were gone. They couldn't do the voices. Everybody else came back and did the voice, but James Doohan and DeForest Kelley were gone. And they replaced James Doohan's character. Instead of having Scotty, they had Welshie. And it's just like, they made up like a Shemp. They gave him a Shemp. They go, we can't have Scotty, so we'll do the Shemp version of Scotty, which I thought was hilarious because Shemp was always my favorite stooge anyway. So I loved Where No Fan Has Gone Before. I think it's hilarious. And it has my favorite joke in all of Futurama, which is when all of the heads of the classic Star Trek actors leave to have their adventure, and the head in a jar of Jonathan Frakes hops up to the front of the shelf, and he's like, all right, like he gets the front row seat because all of the Star Trek people left. So I love that episode. Agent Meister says, "Hi, Steve. I was hoping you could clear something up for me. It's no secret that U.S. citizens hold both veterans and serving members of the armed forces in high regard. I've seen it myself firsthand when I visited your country. Anyone with even a casual knowledge of history would know that American soldiers, as well as troops from other countries, soaked the fields of Europe with their blood fighting fascism in general and Nazism in particular. So, how is it now, 80 years later, that neo Nazis are making their presence felt so vehemently in what passes for political discourse in your country, not least of all during the storming of the Capitol? Are memories really that short? Can you please tell me why, in the US of all places, these pieces of shit are tolerated at all, given what their ideology represents and the havoc it wrought on the world? I am genuinely fascinated. Thanks for reading. Live long and prosper, Agent Meister in Ireland." I mean, it's a good question. I think a lot of it is wrapped up in our rather absolutist and simultaneously romantic view of freedom of speech. We have this idea, this, I think, erroneous idea in the United States, a lot of us, that sunlight is the best disinfectant and the best way to deal with Nazis and fascists is to just let them talk themselves out of a job. And I think history has shown that that doesn't work. That when you allow people with really harmful, dangerous ideas a platform and a microphone and allow them to spread their ideas to a larger audience, the effect is not that they discredit themselves, but they gain power and influence and gather followers. That's the way that works. It's not, sunlight is not the best disinfectant. You know, but we have this fetishization of a very, very absolutist view of freedom of speech that tells us, oh, well, what are we supposed to do? Deny them the platform? We can't very well stop them from speaking, can we? That's un-American. And so we make it easy for them to grow. And a lot of them have gotten smart enough that they don't lead with the swastika and the genocide and the authoritarianism. They sneak that in behind the patriotism and the Christianity and, the mom and the apple pie stuff. They have altered their message enough that they make it palatable to people who might otherwise not be attracted to it. And they have also found new people to blame for all our problems. And I think one of the great appeals of fascism is that it's always giving you someone to blame for your problems other than yourself. And we Americans are just as susceptible to that as anybody else. In fact, we may be more susceptible to it than a lot of other people because we think that our country is exceptional. And we think we're the indispensable nation. And part of the reason is, hey, we saved the world from those Nazis in World War II. They should all be thanking us. We're the greatest country in the world. We saved the world. So, of course, if there's problems in the United States, well, it can't be due to anything that we have done internally. It's got to be those immigrants coming in here, or it's got to be these, people that are citizens of this country, but they're not real Americans. Let's be honest. They're not. They don't have, predominantly recent European ancestry, and they're the ones that are committing all the crimes, and they're the ones that are selling all the drugs, and they're the ones that don't want to work, and it's them, and it's the foreigners, and it's all these people from outside the country that are causing all these problems. And these are all the scapegoats that fascists will identify and say, yeah, see, they're the problem, not you white people. You're not the problem. They're the problem. And that's appealing to a lot of people. So, I mean, I agree with you that it is absurd that a country with defeating Nazism as such a huge part of its relatively recent history, within the last century, we did that. So you would think we wouldn't be slipping back into this so quickly. But yeah, are memories really that short? I think cultural memories are that short. Yeah, unfortunately. I think maybe individual memories, not so much, but cultural memory. I mean, I was born in 1980. I don't remember World War II. Most of the people that I've known in my life who could remember World War II are dead. So, and I don't know if all of them would have been, I mean, a lot of them, when I knew them, they voted Republican. So, but yeah, it's disappointing and it's depressing and it's alarming, but it's not as inexplicable as it might seem at first. Isaiah Taylor says, so Steve, as we know, the Pentagon is fixing to release their UFO report. While I don't know what to expect, and I don't know if it's aliens, my childish little imagination is getting to me. What if? When I was young, I would watch those old 90s documentaries from TLC, History Channel, and others about UFOs, and they were fun to me. One of my favorite topics was the Bermuda Triangle. I would read books about the mysterious disappearance of Flight 19 and other ships and planes, and I would have nightmares about their mysterious vanishings. How can something just vanish without a trace? I laugh at it now, most of it, but Steve, what was your favorite unsolved mystery growing up? This is what I was getting at about Andrew's question. There's a lot of things that used to be called Fortean because the guy who investigated a lot of them and sort of cataloged them in the 19th century, his last name was Fort. So a lot of Fortean phenomenon, and it's things like the Bermuda Triangle or like the hollow earth theory or like cryptids like Bigfoot and the Jersey Devil and the abominable snowman and chupacabra, or UFOs, like all those sorts of phenomena. I don't think Fort really did much with aliens because that wasn't really in vogue at the time. It didn't really become a big thing until the 1940s and 50s. But I used to be into a lot of that stuff. The stuff that were like the subject of episodes of In Search Of with Leonard Nimoy that was on in the 70s and the 80s, and that were profiled in the goofier segments of Unsolved Mysteries, where, that was one of the things that made Unsolved Mysteries such a fun show back in the day, because it was like, you'd have like escaped murderer and kid who was put up for adoption looking for her real parents, and then it would be like fucking haunted house or alien abduction or Bermuda Triangle, and it was like, oh, okay, so we're just doing all of it. We're just doing all of it, right? Like things that are true crime stuff that actually happened that real people could need help with through the show, and then some Bermuda Triangle shit, because why not? So I was into a lot of that stuff growing up. I think the Bermuda Triangle held some fascination for me because, of course, there was the David Copperfield special in 1988 or 89, I think, when David Copperfield's big illusion that year was vanishing into the Bermuda Triangle, right? Total cheese. Like, you watch that today and it's like, oh, this is amazing. This is like the cheesiest, dumbest thing I've ever seen. And I adore it. I adore it. But when I was a kid, that was like, oh man, David Copperfield, he vanished into the Bermuda Triangle and he came back and he brought one of those missing boats with him. And I had no idea that the boat he brought back was just a boat that he made up for that show. I thought he had found, some missing ship, or at least that it was a trick and that the ship he supposedly brought back was meant to be one of the missing ships. No, he just made some shit up. It was like, there's this boat that disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle and I found it. He didn't even use one of the real ones that disappeared. It was amazing. But yeah, I was into that stuff for sure when I was a kid, and like Hollow Earth and lizard people, that kind of stuff. I still think that stuff is really cool. I don't believe it for a second. Just like I don't believe that there are actually aliens visiting planet Earth. Like I don't know what the UFO report is going to say. I don't think it's going to say there's aliens, and I don't think that the explanation is aliens. But the idea is really cool, and the idea of haunted houses and ghosts and past lives and astral projection, and the idea of the hollow Earth or the flat Earth, or I'm alarmed that anybody would actually believe it. Like the idea that there are people who sincerely think the Earth is flat is incredibly alarming. Like you can't possibly believe that. That's just, we know that's wrong. We know that's wrong. There's no excuse for believing that the Earth is flat, and there's no excuse for humoring anybody who says the Earth is flat, or for wasting 5 minutes of your life even talking to someone who sincerely holds such a belief. But the idea is interesting. And the arguments made and the mythology built up around how it works and why it looks to not be flat, et cetera, et cetera. None of it's scientifically compelling at all. It's completely false. I want to stress that. But the idea of it is interesting, just like the idea of the Bermuda Triangle is interesting. So yeah, when I was a kid, I was into all of that stuff. Trisha says, hey, Steve, I wanted to get your opinion on a thought I had regarding Troi's loss of her empathic abilities. In a recent video, you said that you do not see it as a disability, as it is something she could adapt to and it wouldn't impact how she interacts with her society in a meaningful way. Here's my take. Troi is not human. She's half human, yes, but she is also half betazoid. Her ability to communicate telepathically with other betazoids and sense emotions from other species is an ingrained part of her that she has had since birth, not a skill she learned later in life that was kind of handy for her job. When she loses that, the way she perceives the world and those around her changes, and the way she interacts with other betazoids who are her society changes too. To say that she can do her job other ways using body language, etc., is to me like saying someone who loses their left hand can still use their right. Yes, that is true, but we would still say they are disabled. Thoughts? That's a good point. I think it would be fair to say that if Troi had lost her empathic abilities permanently, which of course, she gets them back by the end of that episode, but if she had lost them permanently, it would be fair to say that she was disabled, because you're right, that she's lost an ability that was normal or typical for someone from her planet. And it was an innate quality of hers. It wasn't something that she learned. So if she suddenly lost that, and it was something she had come to depend on, yes, I think that's fair. Maybe I was a little too quick to say, oh, she could adapt in the video, right? But I guess maybe the point I was trying to make, and maybe this is a shitty point that I just shouldn't even try to make, but I think the point I was trying to make was that on the Enterprise, and in sort of the multicultural society of the Federation, it doesn't seem like that world, that environment is built with the assumption that people will be able to sense each other's emotions or sense each other's thoughts. So within that context, being able to do that is like an extra thing. It's not an extra thing to Deanna because she was born being able to do that. And obviously she will feel a loss and she will have to adapt, and it might be extremely difficult for her to do that. But in terms of how the society that she lives in every day works, that ability is not as necessary as, say, what a human would consider their 5 basic senses, right? So I think that's kind of what I was going for. But if I look at it from Deanna's point of view, which would probably, if we were talking about real people, I mean, I think the point of view of the disabled person is the most important perspective to be considered, and I think we would have to consider that. And from Deanna's point of view, she would feel as though she had lost something very important and very essential to herself that was going to take her some time to adjust to not having. So I think in that sense, you're completely right. And maybe I was a little too quick to say, maybe it's a loss, but come on, she could adapt to it. I think that when you look at it from Deanna's perspective, you kind of see things more the way you're describing them. And I think it's completely fair and a good thing that you pointed that out. Some random geek who has to vent and rant again. Well, you come to the right place, my friend. Phoenix was denied SSI again. They didn't have a prescription for their mobility aid was the reason the judge denied them SSI. The reason they didn't get a prescription is that the last doctor said, have you tried losing weight? They said, I can't lose weight. Everything hurts. Again, Phoenix is disabled and can't work. And now, again, can't get SSI to be able to pay for things. What are they supposed to do? How are Biden and the Dems, who suck, let's admit that, going to fix these things? Also, Joanna only gets $1,300 a month from SSDI when her expenses are something like $2,300 a month. How is she supposed to make up for the $1,000 shortfall? What are the Dems doing to fix that? That gets bipartisan support. I'm doing what I can. I've given Joanna $47,000 over the past 4 years and given Phoenix $8,000 over the last 3, but I have over $21,000 in credit cards and less than $300 left in credit limit. And I just want to point out, since it's part of the question, and I'll mention it again at the end of the show, the Phoenix and Joanna are both listed in the charity links document that I always remind people of at the end of the show that Some Random Geek puts together for us, charitylinks.page. It's linked in the description of the video. So if anyone watching would like to help out Phoenix or Joanna to meet their shortfalls that they are faced with through no fault of their own, because the government programs that are designed to help people like them are not helping them. And you can afford it if you're feeling generous. Please consider helping out Joanna and Phoenix, or any of the other folks that are listed in the charity link stock, because until we do fix these programs so that they do what they're intended to do for everybody who needs them, including people who have sort of fallen through the cracks like Joanna and Phoenix here, that's that's just sort of what has to happen. We need to help them make up the shortfall. And it shouldn't be that way, and it doesn't have to be that way, but that is the way it is. So check out the charity links, I guess is what I'm saying. Check out the charity links. Joe McClory says, congratulations on your vasectomy. As a childless man, still within your fertile years, what sorts of trials and questions did you need to endure to persuade the doctor to perform infertility surgery? Do you think it would have been harder to get a similar procedure done as a woman? Would you like to opine on the kind of bullshit it would be, assuming there was a difference? It's funny that you ask, because just yesterday I was on a Zoom call with an old friend of mine who had a hysterectomy several years ago. And even though it was something that she had to have for a medical reason, and she had already had kids, and she was married, and like, you would think like all of the boxes that you need to check, even though I don't think you should have to check any of those boxes, but all the boxes you need to check would have been checked in her case. She had kids, she was married, there was a medical motivation for wanting the hysterectomy. She still had to jump through all these hoops to get it. And she got it. Like, she eventually was able to get it, but she had to go through way more shit to get it than I did for my vasectomy. My vasectomy was, I went on the website of my healthcare provider. I requested a referral from my primary care doctor to the urologist. I got that. Didn't have to talk to anybody on the phone. It was done completely through email and through the website and stuff. The urology center called me to make an appointment. I went in for a consultation. The urologist described the procedure to me, went over the risks, went over the things to expect, et cetera, et cetera. Asked me, after everything was explained, asked me if I still wanted to do it. But there was never a hint of pressure, of, are you sure this is what you want? He asked me if I had kids. I said no. There was never, like, oh, are you sure you want to do this? You might want kids someday. Like, there was none of that. There was none of that. There was describing the procedure, telling me what I was in for, going over the risks and rewards, asking if I still wanted to do it. I said yes. He said, okay, here's the next step. Here's what, we'll get you an appointment set up, et cetera, et cetera. There was no bullshit at all, like my friend, who is a woman, had to go through to get her hysterectomy. And I've heard similar stories from women who wanted to get their tubes tied, which is a far less drastic procedure, but that still makes it so you can't have kids, right? That they also had to jump through hoops and had to convince the doctor, like, no, yes, I understand, I won't be able to have kids after this. I've thought about it. This is really what I want to do. I'm an adult. Can I please do this? There was nothing like that for my vasectomy. And you're right that it is bullshit. It is total bullshit that an adult person, just because they're a woman, would be, dragged through this series of obstacles just to make sure that this is really what you want. You don't want to be a baby factory anymore. Are you sure? It's condescending, and it's insulting, and it's sexist, and it's totally unfair. Like, for me, it was one of the easiest medical experiences I have ever had. I went to the doctor. I told him what I wanted. He said, sounds good. And I got it. And the fact that it's not that way for women who want to get their tubes tied or want to have a hysterectomy. Again, and my friend, there was a medical reason why my friend wanted the hysterectomy. It wasn't medically necessary, but she had like a condition where having a hysterectomy would have increased her quality of life, would have made things easier for her, right? And that was the reason she was getting it. And again, she eventually got it, but she had to go through a bunch of shit to get it. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Stephen Sutton, a question regarding Britain's portrayal in Star Trek from a Brit. Has there ever been a realistic depiction of future Britain anywhere in canon? I can think of the beginning of Into Darkness, which to me doubled as a retelling of the July 7th bombings, by the way, but I can't think of anything beforehand. Holodeck or fantasy-based portrayals of Britain include Robin Hood and Holmes-era London, TNG, Proto-Downton Abbey, Voyager, The Battle of Britain and James Bond, DS9. Then you have real interpretations, Planet of the Scots, TNG, where for some reason the Space Scots decide to live like Rob Roy. The TNG finale, where Data lives at Cambridge and has a fucking core blimey maid while living in the same house as Isaac fucking Newton. Frankly, I'm amazed no producer of Star Trek has ever cast Dick Van Dyke to play a role. That's, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think there has been, outside of Into Darkness, which was just sort of the prologue of the movie, and you don't really, I mean, London is not a major location in that movie, but you at least get a glimpse of it. But other than that, yeah, I don't think we've ever seen what Britain in the 24th century is like. It's just never been a major location, which is interesting because Britain, and particularly London, is one of the world's great cities. You would think that that would be an appealing, an appealing idea if we're going to do an episode or a film that has scenes that take place back on Earth. That would be an interesting thing to show us. But then again, you have to remember that the Star Trek universe revolves around San Francisco. So almost every glimpse of life on Earth in the 23rd or 24th century that we see in Star Trek, it's almost always San Francisco, because that's where Starfleet headquarters is, and the show is centered on Starfleet. And if it's not San Francisco, then it's France, because that's where Captain Picard is from. And if it's not that, I think there was that little bit of New Zealand in the Voyager pilot. And what I guess isn't Joseph Sisko's restaurant supposed to be in New Orleans? So I guess the scenes that take place at Sisko's in Deep Space Nine are in New Orleans, but I mean, you can't really tell because you don't see any of the city. You just see the restaurant. But yeah, it's, for the most part, Earth stuff in Star Trek revolves around San Francisco, and the rest of the world takes a backseat, including, unfortunately, Britain. But it's a great point. Bruce Bartup, aka Nigel Needlebottom, are you going solar on your energy needs anytime soon? Gonna wait till Papa Biden announces his subsidy? Are you watching the installed cost per kilowatt tumble and boring everyone who knows you rigid with, haha, I told you so, I told you, how do you like me now, huh? Didn't I tell you I'm the shit, or something to that effect? I'll probably do that if I ever do go solar. Yeah, but I have no plans to do it now, because I think even with the subsidy, if I could get a subsidy to help pay for it, I probably still couldn't afford the upfront cost. I mean, it pays for it in the long run. I've known other people that have done it, and I've seen like the benefits of it. And if you do get enough solar panels installed that you can actually run your house on the solar energy, I mean, in the long run, you come out way ahead. Like it pays for itself in the long run, but you still, even with the government subsidy, you still need to lay out some cash to get it done. And I just ain't got the cash. So no plans to do that right now. But if I could afford it, absolutely I would do it. Absolutely I would do it. John Burns says, hello, Steve. It was nice to go for a pint at the local pub on Thursday. Do you have any plans for travel when you're free to travel? Maybe visit your good buddy Biden at the White House? I mean, I've kind of addressed this before. I guess eventually, again, depending on what was in my budget, I mean, I would like to make it out to California at some point and visit Jason. There's other places I would like to visit. As far as visiting Biden, I probably wouldn't visit Biden at the White House, but I would like to get down to D.C. at some point and visit the Smithsonian again. I think I saw the Air and Space Museum the Air and Space Museum in D.C., the main branch of the Air and Space Museum, is reopening to visitors in July. So I mean, I don't know if I'm going to go this summer or not, but I would like at some point to go back to the Air and Space Museum. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any specific travel plans, and I'm not like, oh, I'm not like itching to go, like, oh god, I got to get out of here. Like, I was never much of a traveler to begin with. Um, but there are places I have sort of vague notions. There are places that I would like to go if the opportunity presented itself and if it was safe and if I could afford to go, for sure. But yeah, and DC is probably one of those places because it's close and there's stuff down there I want to see, but I'm not like itching to go or anything, you know. Um, Question from Dana. Hi, Steve. I just finished Maya and the Rising Dark, which was so good. What was the last book you checked out from your library? What programs does it offer? Ours is having yoga on Saturday morning, and I'm going to go. I've also been working on organizing, cleaning out the green room so that it will be the office, which means it'll be mostly my space, which is kind of nice. What are you looking forward to and or excited about? Oh, and what book should we use for Read Away after the other Westmore? And finally, how come there's always a knockoff Steve in your fictional stuff? I hope you've had a lovely day. Looking forward to tonight's show. Boy, don't ask questions right after guzzling a bunch of coffee. That was like a month and a half. That was like so many questions. You could have parsed that out over weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's all crammed into one question. The last actual physical book that I checked out from the library was probably the Linda Sarcer book that I think we read together, Dane. I think we both were reading that at the same time. And I checked out a physical copy because I couldn't find an ebook. So that was the last book that I actually checked, the last actual book that I checked out from the library. I have no idea what my library offers in terms of programs because I don't go, because that's a form of socializing and I just don't usually do that. Like, I mean, even pre-pandemic, it's not like I was going, I wonder what's going on at the library. Like I'm not going to go. Like, I'm just not going to go. I'm not interested. But I think it's great that you're going to start going to yoga. That's awesome. What else? What am I looking forward to? In the Heights came out today, or no, it came out yesterday, and I haven't watched that yet. So I might watch In the Heights at some point over the weekend. And of course, we're also doing our podcast this weekend, and I'm watching the movie for the movie podcast probably tomorrow, which is Raising Arizona, which I haven't watched for a really long time. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, those are the things like right in the immediate future that I can think of that I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to that. What book should we use for Read Away after Westmore? I know you said that I should pick it. I haven't picked it yet. I have no idea. I haven't really thought about it, so I'll have to get back to you on that. And finally, why is there always a knockoff Steve in my fictional stuff? Because playing fictionalized, hopefully funny, shitty versions of myself is a blast. It is so much fun. It is so much fun to write and to portray a fictionalized version of myself. Because I mean, I hopefully it comes across when we do the Ensign's log and I'm playing my regular character in the Ensign's log. I have so much fun playing that character. I love playing Ensign Johnson. He is such a blast to play. Playing the version of me in the Stuffy videos is always a lot of fun. The version of me who is in the Ask a Professional YouTuber videos, again, it's so much fun because I get to make fun of myself. I get to make fun of other people, but in an indirect way that is also self-deprecating. And it's fun. It's fun to act as that character. It's fun to write that character. It's just fun. And I've done it enough times, and I know enough about it and sort of how that works, that I'm pretty good at making it funny. Like, I think it's usually funny when I do that, so that's why, because I like it and it's fun and it's funny when I do it. And finally, last question from Relic 5000. Greetings. Since this is likely last, you were right, because you posted it like with 15 minutes before the show. Since this is likely last, I'll make it a short one. Do you think Trelane is a Q? Not necessarily. I know there were the novels that I think Peter David wrote the novel, right? Where it was what was it, Q squared, where it was Q and Trelane, and it was revealed that Trelane was like like an adolescent Q, or like a young Q. And I mean, it makes sense. I think it works. if there's a story there where Trelane is a Q, I think that's fine. I think, in fact, I think I have an idea for one of my Star Trek comics where Trelane shows up. So I need to get a Trelane figure. They do make Trelane figures in the scale in the series that I use for the comic. So I need to get one of those at some point on eBay. And where I think the story is a Q Trelane story. I can't remember if I'm going to specify that Trelane is a Q or if he's just another godlike being that Q is looking after. But that's kind of the point of my answer to the question. He could be a Q, but he doesn't have to be because it's Star Trek and there's all kinds of godlike beings floating around. That's one of the things about Star Trek. I mean, the Q don't really have the market cornered on godlike beings. And if you're going to say that every omnipotent or seemingly omnipotent character in Star Trek is just a Q in some kind of disguise or some different flavor of Q, that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of boring. If like, so all of the godlike beings are Q, like that just, I don't know, that takes away some of the flavor to me. I like sort of the made up as you go along wackiness that a lot of the TOS stuff has. And if you smooth it out and say, well, Trelane was actually a Q, I don't know. I mean, that's fine. It can work if you have a good enough story, but I'm completely content to say that he's not, that he's just some other kind of godlike being who, has godlike powers similar to the powers that Q had. And of course, Q, I mean, in a real world perspective, I think the character of Q is definitely a descendant of Trelane. They're very, very similar. But does Trelane have to be a Q? I don't think so. But he could be. And like I say, he might be in those comics I'm doing. I can't decide. I don't remember if that's the idea I had for it or not, but he doesn't necessarily have to be. All right, that's it for the patron and member questions. Thanks to all of my patrons and my members for supporting my work and for asking questions. And now we're going to spend the rest of the show hanging out with the live chat. So let's see what people have to say in the live chat. And let's see if I can get the live chat to show on screen here. There it is. Hi, everybody. So how is everybody? John, here's John Burns. See, this is a great example. If Trelane is a Q, what about Charlie X as a Q? Charlie Q? Yeah, see, I don't think he needs to be. I don't think Charlie has to be a Q. I don't think Trelane has to be a Q. Some Random Geek, thank you. I have 2 super chats. Let me check those out. Let me see what those are. I only see one. Were there 2? I see one from John Burns who says, what examples of France are there in Star Trek outside of Paris, of course, in some guy's vineyard? Well, those are the only ones. Those are the only ones. And let me scroll back and see if I can find the other super chats that I missed. I don't see the other super chat. Were there 2? I only see the one from John. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, there's John's, and then there's the one that just came in from Stuart Brown, who says, hi, Steve. Which film do you wish you could review the most for late seating, good and bad? I would love to do the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special. We were talking about that on Twitter the other day after the Rex Trek. You put one in. I don't see yours over here. I'm sorry. I'm going back through the chat and I do not see Rex Trek's super chat. If you can just you don't have to send me another super chat, but just maybe post the question. Yeah, apparently it was $10, but I don't see it in the stream activity. I don't know what the deal is. But yeah, don't send me another super chat, but maybe just tell me what the question was for it, and I'll make sure I acknowledge it and answer it. But some Random Geek is going to do it. Thank you, my friend. But anyway, yeah, I would love to do the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special. I would also, we've never done any of the Nolan Batman movies. I would love to do the Dark Knight. That would be one. I'd love to do another one of the Marvel movies. I think the only MCU movie we've done so far is Iron Man, so I'd like to do another one of those. Yeah, there are some. Okay. So here's Rex Trex. Thank you, Some Random Geek. It says, and thank you, Rex Trek, for the super chat, and I apologize for missing it. And I don't know why I don't see it here. It says, I'm 62. Are you worried about what America will be by the time you're my age? I'm just glad I don't have kids and 25 years left on this rock and live in a blue state. What say you, whippersnapper? I mean, I have similar concerns. Yeah. I mean, I don't think about it that much. I don't worry about it that much on a day to day basis. But when I think about it, yeah, I mean, I do worry about how things will look in 20 or 30 years. Yeah, I do. I'm concerned. So yeah, I'm, I guess I'm right there with you. Um, Got a super chat here from Red Spiral Ray, who says, is Tim Burton the Zack Snyder of his day? He turned Batman into a psycho that kills people and smiles while doing it. As far from Batman as could be. Well, no, Tim Burton is actually a talented filmmaker. Tim Burton is not a great filmmaker, but he's got talent, he's got style. He's made a lot of bad movies, but he's also made some very good movies. And the moment that you are talking about, when as far, I mean, look, I don't like Batman killing people. I think that the thing that the Tim Burton Batman did that I really resent and I wish we could get away from in other versions of Batman in movies is he was the first one to put machine guns mounted on the Batmobile. And it's like, so Batman doesn't use guns except when he mounts them on his car. That's somehow okay. I hate that. And Tim Burton introduced that. But the moment you're talking about from Batman Returns, when Batman puts the bomb in the guy's belt and then smiles when he dumps him over the railing and he blows up, that's a joke. It's a really, really dark joke. And you can still say that it's not cool because it's still Batman killing somebody, but it's meant to be a gag, a really dark, sick gag, but it's meant to be a gag. And I've told people for years, if you watch Batman Returns with the mindset that you are watching a black comedy, it's way better. If you watch Batman Returns with the mindset of this is a comedy and these are jokes, it's a much better movie. So I'll just put that out there. But no, I don't think it's fair to compare Tim Burton to Zack Snyder. Tim Burton, I think, is even though Tim Burton is not my favorite filmmaker, and there's a lot wrong with a lot of Tim Burton's movies, and he definitely has limitations as a filmmaker, I don't think it's fair to compare him to Zack Snyder. And also, as far as I can tell, he's not a fucking fascist. And Jason asked a question a while ago. Let me see. See, this is a good point. I forgot about this, but Jason says Trelane's powers were dependent on a machine that Kirk destroys, rendering him powerless. Q don't need no machine. That is a great point. I completely forgot about that part of the episode, but yeah, behind the mirror, right? So yeah, so you could, if you want to argue like canonical evidence, Trelane's power seems to come from a machine, and yeah, Q don't need no machine. So that's a great point. Another super chat from Aditya Sriwast. Aditya Suriwast. I'm so sorry for butchering your name. I'm so sorry. Anyway, Steve Shives, dude, I discovered you back when you did the 5 stupid things about ancient aliens. Hope you're doing well, good sir. Well, thank you very much. And again, I apologize for fucking up the pronunciation of your name. Thank you very much for sticking with me this long, and thank you very much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Dana says you should go to the Hagerstown Pride celebration and support. Thank you for the suggestion, but I'm not going to do that. 255 AD says, never mind Britain. Wouldn't you want to see the currently impoverished parts of the world of the future Trek utopia? Well, apparently there aren't any. Like, at least according to what has ever been shown on the show, according to, what we've ever seen on the Star Trek shows, there aren't any impoverished parts, at least not on Earth. And we have kind of seen little glimpses of impoverished other planets. There's the failed colony that Tasha Yar is from. There's Bajor after the occupation. And technically, Bajor is not a member of the Federation, but it's sort of in the Federation's neighborhoods. I mean, we've seen glimpses of impoverished places in the Star Trek future, but supposedly there are no more impoverished places on Earth at all. Sarah Scott, I have not watched Cinema Wins. No, I've seen it recommended here and there, but I've never actually watched it. 255 AD says, suppose you went to Mansion with a crystal ball and showed him a 2031 where President for Life Carlson is putting every non-white in camps. You think he'd change his mind? God damn it, I hope so. I hope so. Um, Super chat from John Burns, who says Greg Easterbrook Advise and Consent 1960 was about a left-wing Secretary of State who was actually a stooge for Russia. I would have bet my life savings against a right-wing president who was actually a stooge for Russia. Well, yeah, I mean it can happen here, you know. Like there's a great book by Sinclair Lewis called "It Can't Happen Here," but the whole point of the book is it can happen here. The Radical Bacon says you should go to Pride and spend some money. I think I would. I mean, I would probably just make a donation to a local charity, and so I'd find out what local organization was sponsoring it and just make a donation to that instead. I'm not a person who goes to things like Pride, anything. Like I'm not. It's basically like a parade. I hate parades. I'm not going. Um, On Some Random Geek, this is a good point. Don't say you're boring for being a cis hetero guy. That feeds into the notion that queers are identifying as queer to feel special, and that's completely true. I say I'm a boring cis hetero guy in an attempt to be self-deprecating, but I don't want to sort of other LGBTQ people in doing that. So that's a good point. Super chat from Mike Garcia. Thank you very much, my friend, for the donation. I really appreciate it. Oh, 255 AD. Now that's a good question. That's a good point. The parts of Earth that are impoverished today, but that have been brought into the. Now that's a good point. That would be cool. See parts of Earth that are like that are impoverished today, but they're actually really, really great places in the future. That's an interesting idea. Steve Schmaling says, it seems to me your view of conservatives is a bit dim. Yeah, that's putting it mildly. But I wondered something. What is your opinion of Schwarzenegger as an actor, person, and politician? I actually, at this point, I would say I like him as all three. I mean, I think he needs to not be a Republican anymore. I mean, I feel like when the only public, like famous Republican worth half a shit is Arnold Schwarzenegger, that tells you all you need to know about the state that the party is in. But as far as current, like high profile Republicans, he's pretty much the best case scenario. And as a person, I don't. I mean, he cheated on his wife and he had the affair with the maid, and I mean, like, there's a bunch of shit in his personal life that is not, uh, you know, the sort of thing that you would be proud of. So there's that. I can't necessarily say he's like a great person in his private life, but certainly not as bad as a lot of other people who have reached his level of status in Hollywood. And as an actor, I've always really liked him. I mean, I think, he's not fucking Laurence Olivier, right? He's not like a great actor, but as an action hero, he's one of the best ever. And his movies were often, even the bad ones were enjoyable. And he was a good, enjoyable presence on screen. He had charisma. He had screen presence. He had good timing. I mean, people get hung up on the accent, but I mean, that's just the way the dude talks. He had good comic timing. I like him as an actor a lot. Braden Goss, excuse me, says, with the Fresh Prince and Friends reunions being hits, are there any shows you would like to see a big budget reunion for? Anybody want to guess? Has anybody guessed? Let me see. I don't think anybody's guessed, but the answer is Perfect Strangers. Get me Mark Lynn Baker and Bronson Pinchot back together. God damn it. I want my Perfect Strangers reunion. Some Random Geek said Quantum Leap. Yeah, Quantum Leap for sure. Yeah. Dana was going to guess it right. Dana says I'm gay, and I assume I said it. Dana was going to guess right. Yeah. See, Dana, I trust you. I knew you were going to guess it right. So you get credit for that. But yeah. Super chat from John Burns, who says there's a big difference between balanced curriculum and banning ideas. Tennessee in 1927 should not have tried to ban Darwin, should have taught Descent of Man and also Genesis. Today, CRT should be taught alongside other views. Why is this either ban it or mandate it nonsense? No, I agree. No, I don't agree at all. That's ridiculous. They shouldn't have taught Descent of Man and Genesis in science class. Maybe if you want to have like a literature class or some kind of like history of Western civilization or mythology or something where they teach the Bible in that context, then that's fine. But teaching it in science class alongside evolution as though they're equivalents, no, that's horseshit. Of course, they shouldn't teach Genesis in science class alongside Darwin. That's ridiculous. It's not science. And as for the critical race theory thing, I mean, I don't think critical race theory should be banned at all. I think it's most of what people are referring to as critical race theory and wanting to ban are classes or curriculum that teach students about the racist history of this country and talk about how, no, seriously, slavery was like a really big deal. And we need to talk about it and not minimize it. And not only was slavery a big deal 150 years ago, but the remnants of it are still with us today. And the structural racism that still affects people's lives is a big deal today, right? And there are a lot of people who just don't want that message to get out because it fucks with their money and they don't want that. So, I mean, that's what is sort of being put together under the umbrella of critical race theory, even stuff that has nothing to do with actual academic work that might fall under that category. So, you know, but I mean, what's the alternative? Is the alternative? What, teaching the whitewashed history? Like, what's the alternative to what's the equal time that you give to people? You go, okay, you can teach critical race theory, but we also, what's the other side? The lost cause? Like what? So no, I mean, I like, it's a good question, and I thank you for the super chats, but I disagree with you completely. Um, Two Tribes says, Steve, what is trans warp? And what color is its pride flag? Well, I guess trans warp would be a warp that has a gender that is different than the gender it was assigned when its warp drive was engaged for the first time. I guess. And what color would be trans warp's pride flag? I don't know I mean, wasn't there one of the TOS movies where the warp effect, like when they showed the Enterprise from the outside, like warping through the screen, it had kind of like a rainbow glisten kind of shimmer effect. That was kind of cool. Another super chat from John Burns, who says, except his point was that Darwin shouldn't have been banned in the first place. It should have been taught. Well, yeah, I mean, Darwin should have been taught, but Genesis shouldn't have been taught. And another super chat from Kirok 2011 says, you're a Quantum Leap fan. Do you have any videos I should just look after this? By the way, I love Quantum Leap, even though it has its flaws. I think I may have done a 5 things about Quantum Leap at some point. Maybe not, though. I don't know if I may not ever have done a Quantum Leap video. If I did, it was a long time ago. But I could totally do a Quantum Leap video. I love Quantum Leap. Yeah, you're right. It has its flaws. It's not a perfect show, but I love Quantum Leap a bunch. Yeah, and if I don't remember how, I may not have done a video about it actually, but I should. Oh, I should. Another super chat from Red Spiral Ray. Thank you again. Says, someone puts Superman 3 and Superman Returns in front of you. Which one are you watching first and why? Both have good ideas with flawed execution. Superman Returns is the best Superman film ever made. So I'm going to watch that one first. Superman 3 is a bad but likable movie. So I will watch that second. Superman 3 has one, I think has one unambiguously good scene, which is the junkyard fight between the two halves of Superman. Well, no, there's some other good. I mean, some of the stuff with Ross Webster is good. Like the scene where Gus, Richard Pryor's character, calls Ross Webster after what appears to be the failed attempt to kill Superman with the artificial kryptonite, and he basically, runs through what happened. He says, Superman didn't die from the kryptonite, and Ross Webster says, I asked you to kill Superman, and you're telling me you couldn't even do that one simple thing. And then he lets go of the phone, and the phone just slides down the side of his face and drops to the floor. It's such a great scene. It's perfectly played, and it's really funny. But so there are little moments like that in Superman 3. But overall, it's not a good movie, whereas Superman Returns is a masterpiece. We may disagree on that. I think clearly we do, because you said it's good ideas with a flawed execution. I disagree. I think Superman Returns is a masterpiece. So there you go. But I would still watch Superman 3. Like I'm not, I have a lot of affection for Superman 3, even though I don't really think it's a good movie. Yeah, some random geek as far as it's about Quantum Leap. Yeah, Scotty Bax. Come on. That's the beginning and the end of the argument for why you should watch Quantum Leap. Scotty Bax. Skobax, my man. 255 AD, that is an excellent question. People in red states who valorize World War II vets, do they even know what the Nazis stood for? I mean, I think they do. I think it's just a matter of cultural blindness. For whatever reason, they just don't see the same things in people in this country that are espousing those ideas or very similar ideas. They just don't see it. They're oblivious to that in their own culture. They're capable of seeing it in other people's cultures, but they don't see it in their own. 255 AD says, Sarah Scott, you youngin'. Quantum Leap never spoke to me, but then again, it ended before I was born. You whippersnapper. 255 AD says, who would you say is the last non-shitty GOP president? I tend to go with Ford. Yeah, and if not Ford, Eisenhower, probably. I mean, the only other option at that point is Nixon, and it sure as fuck ain't Nixon. Yeah, Eisenhower wasn't terrible. So yeah, if it's not Ford, it's Eisenhower, I would say. Super chat from Thomas Head, who says, if CNN can take Jeffrey Toobin back, why can't country music take Morgan Wallen back? I mean, here's the thing. If Jeffrey Toobin gets his job back after he was caught jacking off on TV, like, there's a lot of people that we owe apologies to. I'm not saying we should apologize to them. I'm saying they probably got, shit canned for good reasons too. But Jeffrey Toobin is like, oh, and what's it been, like 6 months? Like, come on. The guy was jacking off on TV like last year. And now he's got his job back already? Come on. This is how we're going to get stuck with Louis C.K. again. Okay? Louis C.K. was, I guarantee you, as soon as Jeffrey Toobin was on TV, after coming back from being caught jacking off on TV, I guarantee you Louis C.K. was on the phone with his agent or with somebody going, what the fuck is going on? This is how we're going to fuck this up. Yeah. It's a good question. Steve Schmalling asks, what's your favorite MST episode and why is it Manos the Hands of Fate? Manos is up there. Manos is way up there, but my favorite MST episode is The Amazing Colossal Man. God, I love that episode. And very close behind that would probably be Cave Dwellers. Those are my two favorite MST3K episodes, but Manos is hilarious. Manos is way, way up there. John Burns says Ford created Chevy Chase's career. That was unforgivable. Well, then we're going with Eisenhower. And thank you for the super chat again, John. Yeah, then we're going with Eisenhower. Dana asks, do you have any you as an English teacher should have read this book recommendations for me since I'm so close to finishing Pride and Prejudice? It's all stuff that I'm sure you've read. I can't imagine that there's a book that is part of like the Western canon of literature that I have read and you have not read. And it's one of those books that like every English teacher should read this. Like I can't even think of what it would be. I can't even think of what it would be. Like I would say, like, I don't know, Frankenstein, but you've read Frankenstein, surely, No, you are asking the wrong guy, my dear. You are asking the wrong guy. Yes, Sarah has a good question. When do you think schools will start teaching flat earth theory in science classes? Yeah, I mean, exactly. Right. Well, we're teaching them that the earth is round. So we have to give equal time, right? We have to teach them that it's flat too and let them make up their own mind. Stuart Brown, I did not watch enough of Battlestar Galactica to see Dean Stockwell in it. So I can't really say. I'm sure he was great because he's Dean Stockwell. He's great in everything. Ooh, Daryl, this is a good question. After Andrew Jackson, who do you think is the second worst president the Democratic Party ever put forth? Ooh, that's a good one. Let me see. Got to go with Buchanan. I just Googled it just to double check out that. I'm pretty sure James Buchanan was a Democrat, but I Googled it just now to double check. James Buchanan. I mean, come on. Definitely. Um, Two Tribes, Girl in Gold Boots is an amazing episode. So is Space Mutiny. Space Mutiny is a great one. So is Laser Blast. I mean, there are so many potential like candidates for great episodes of MST3K. Super chat from Kirok 2011. Thank you once again, my friend, who says, I watched your video on how Deep Space Nine saved the Ferengi. I was surprised you didn't mention their appearance in Enterprise. Do you, and then another super chat with the second half of the question. Thank you very much for that. Do you think Enterprise retconned their presence, sort of going back to earlier style TNG? I can't really remember the Enterprise appearances. I know the Ferengi on Enterprise, it was done in such a way so that they could, violate canon without violating it, because they knew like the nerds would lose their shit if they had Ferengis in the prequel, when Ferengi weren't supposed to have official first contact until TNG. I don't really remember how they behaved in Enterprise, to be honest. So I can't really say if they changed them or not. But whatever. I mean, like, I don't. I didn't mention their appearance in Enterprise because it doesn't. I don't really remember it, and I don't really think it was that important. But did they behave more like they did in their TNG appearances? Like, I honestly don't remember. So I can't really answer. Super chat from Loretta Reyes, who says, maybe in Star Trek's future, there will be impoverished places / ghettos, but only as reconstructions in an amusement park, like the fake Kowloon city in Japan now. We can always dream. Yeah, like, remember poverty? Or no, of course you don't remember poverty because it's the 24th century, but this is what it looks like. Maybe like Disneyland will have like a poor town, you know? And then there'll be like a time traveler from the 20th century who'll be like, oh, you fucking monsters. Another super chat from John Burns, who says, like, after Rob Ford did all his stuff, drugs, and the plenty to eat at home, Jon Stewart said Anthony Weiner must be going, what the frack? Yeah. It's there. There are some, double standards in play, aren't there? Another super chat from Thomas Head, who says, why is a speaker at Yale University allowed to talk about racist fantasies? I don't know what this is in reference to, so you'll have to clue me in. But they shouldn't be allowed to. Another super chat from Red Spiral Ray says, Steve, I'm getting my first apartment soon and hope to start training as a welder within 6 months. Any advice for my nerves you could share? Pay attention in welding class. That seems important. Things are going to be fine. You'll probably love having your own place. And if you are getting trained as a welder, you'll probably be able to get a pretty good gig out of that. My dad learned to weld in the Navy, and that was ultimately what got him his job that he had for 30 years. He worked with the state of Maryland. Eventually, he became like a maintenance chief at a state hospital, and that was like his job, for until he retired. But he initially got the job because he could weld. So I mean, it's a good skill to have. I can tell you from my family's experience that it's a good skill to have. Another super chat from John Burns, thank you again, who says, why not just go with the next Democrat after Jackson, considering they all fought for slavery and incarceration well into the 20th century? Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of shitty presidents who also happen to be Democrats. I think James Buchanan is got to be way up there, though, since he's the president who was sort of like in office when the Civil War started to happen, and he was just like, nah, let the next guy worry about that. Let me go back and look through Oh, 255 AD says Wilson. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, Wilson's a good one. Yeah, because it could be personally, Wilson was a horrible president because because he was racist, and I mean, he famously said, he screened Birth of a Nation in the White House and said it's like history written in lightning. So it's like, ooh, you don't want to hear your president saying that. Yeah, Dana the Great Gatsby, maybe, but I mean, and like I love the Great Gatsby, but I don't know if I would say it's like a must read for an English teacher. Cause like, I mean, I don't know. And like, I haven't even read it probably in 20 years. Um, 255 AD says the science class debate. Does it come down to people conflating balance with objectivity? Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think more broadly, it's people misunderstanding what balance is. Like, balance doesn't mean two opposing viewpoints, even if one of the viewpoints is completely invalid. And I think that's the fallacy that we've kind of fallen into, which is that, if there is one viewpoint, then there must be an opposing viewpoint that's just as valid. And that's not always the case. Like in the case of evolution, there really isn't a legitimate competing theory. Like there's just not. So, there's creationism / intelligent design, which claims to be a competing theory, but there's no scientific basis for it. So I think, yeah, it's confusing balance with objectivity, and it's also just being confused about the purpose of balance and viewing balance as an innately good thing, even when there aren't two things to be balanced. Like if there's only one legitimate theory, then it's not balanced to teach some bullshit theory alongside it as though they're equivalents, because that's actually distorting the truth. That's not, you know, teaching people about the truth. Super chat from John Burns says, many like writing horror in a dystopian future, but I don't recall the Holocaust happening in a dystopian Germany. Do you? Made it more terrifying, no? Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's plenty of horrifying stuff that actually happened in history. Yeah, I mean, and if you think about something like the Holocaust that not only happened, but happened that was an official government program. I mean, that wasn't just a bunch of terrorists that did that. That was the government of a major country that carried out that systematic mass murder. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much more dystopian than that, you know? Some random geek says Kamala Harris said that people from Guatemala shouldn't come to the U.S. How do you feel about that? Well, I think we should be welcoming immigrants and refugees from every place. So I guess if the idea is, don't come right now because we're not ready to receive that many people at once, then for practical reasons, maybe I could say, okay, that's fine. But long term, big picture, I think we should be letting way more people in than we are. I mean, and if we're not equipped for it now, we should be getting equipped for it. We should be, raising the number of refugees we're accepting. We should be letting way more people in who are immigrants or who are fleeing, economic or natural disasters or violence or whatever. Like I think just generally speaking, we should be letting way more people in than we are. So I disagree with Kamala Harris about that. In general, I mean, if it's a specific thing, if it's a short term concern of like we can't handle that many people right now, okay, fair enough. But like, well, what are we doing for the future? Because we should be getting ready to handle that many people. We should be letting people in. That should be the goal, to let more people in. Um, Radical Bacon says, how do you even argue for critical race theory when the people arguing against it don't even know what it is? Well, yeah, I mean, it's similar to the arguments against creationism versus evolution, like when the people who are arguing against a theory don't even know what it is, or like people who argue against feminism, like anti-feminist, men's rights activists who don't even know what feminism is, who don't even know what intersectionality is, who don't know what third wave, what are the defining characteristics of third wave feminism. Like, they don't know any of it. They're just arguing against it because they think it's bad. Just like the critical race theory opponents, they don't even know what the fuck it is. They're just saying they've decided that it's bad and it's a threat to a thing they like, so they don't want it. And how, yeah, that's a great question. How do you argue with them? I mean, try to educate people who are open to be educated, but that's not going to be everybody. Jason asks, are you taunting me, sir? Taunting me with your Superman Returns nonsense? Hey, man, we already reviewed the movie on the show, okay? You know how I feel about it. I mean, like, it's not, you're not surprised when I say it's a masterpiece. That's my opinion. It's a masterpiece. It's the greatest Superman movie ever made. It's the greatest superhero movie ever made. 255 AD says, I got my vaccine this afternoon. When do I start getting transmission through my chip? It's been like 9 hours already. I got bad news for you, buddy. I still haven't gotten my 5G service, and I got mine like well over a month ago now. Actually, I got mine like 2 months ago, didn't I? I got mine back in April. Yeah. I mean, if you're not getting it by now, I think you're probably fucked. I'm sorry, man. And yeah, Dana, that's a great point. And also to Radical Bacon, it's like people who are against Obamacare but support the Affordable Care Act. Yeah, for real. Exactly. And Stuart Brown says, as the chat on presidents address the Civil War, are you a fan of the Ken Burns doc on the topic? I love the series and think it should be essential in U.S. history classes. Yes. I rewatch the Ken Burns Civil War series is one of those that I rewatch almost every year just because I love it so much. I have it on DVD, and it's also on the PBS app that I subscribe to, that you can watch it in HD. And I love the Ken Burns Civil War series. It's my favorite Ken Burns documentary. And generally speaking, I'm a big Ken Burns fan. I think his baseball series is great. I thought his series on World War II was great. I thought his Vietnam one was great. A lot of his shorter ones, like the one he did one on the national parks. He did one on Thomas Jefferson. He did one on Jack Johnson, the first black world heavyweight champion in boxing. He did one on the Roosevelts a few years ago that was excellent. Of course, Brooklyn Bridge, which was like his first big breakthrough. That's great. But Civil War, I think, is his magnum opus. Still, I love Ken Burns' Civil War. And yeah, you can say that it's a little too sympathetic to the South, and I think it is, but at the same time, it also goes out of its way to foreground slavery and to put over how awful slavery was, and the fact that despite what anybody might say, the war was about slavery. You can't say, oh no, it was about states' rights and people from the South didn't care about slavery. Like, no, 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 no. No, no, no. It was about slavery, period. And there's, you can get more complex with it, but you have to acknowledge it was about slavery on both sides. Right. And I think it does a good job of that. So yeah, I think Ken Burns' Civil War is fantastic. I love it. Super chat from John Burns, who says Obamacare. I believe you mean Romney care. Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. Radical Bacon. I do not watch the Ken Burns baseball once a year. No, I don't. I watch Civil War. I usually rewatch. I've rewatched the Civil War a lot more than I've rewatched baseball. But I love I have baseball on DVD too. I have the box sets of both Civil War and baseball. And I also have the extra innings for baseball. I've got the whole thing. But I don't rewatch it nearly as often as I do Civil War. And what I used to do with baseball was I would get in the mood to watch like a particular inning. Like I would want to watch the inning where it had most of the Babe Ruth stuff, or I'd want to watch the inning that had the Jackie Robinson stuff. I wouldn't watch the whole thing from beginning to end. Whereas with the Civil War, like I will watch the whole thing from beginning to end. Like over the course of a couple of days, I won't sit there and watch the whole 11-hour thing from start to finish, but I'll watch the first part today and then the next part tomorrow and go through the whole episode, go through the whole series. And I don't usually do that with baseball. I haven't done that with baseball for a really long time. But baseball is great. I love that series. Super chat from John Burns. Neither side was willing to negotiate over slavery. That's true at the point that when they got to the point of war, that was true. Although, I mean, it has to be said, the North was willing to negotiate over slavery for a while before the Civil War, before hostilities broke out. The problem was it would have been negotiation to ultimately get rid of it. And the South wasn't having any of that. And Radical Bacon in the Civil War theme, I think you mean Ashokan Farewell. Yeah, the violin piece. The da 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 da. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it so much. Oh, and people are finally figuring out that Opinionville is Jason from the Ensign's log. That's my best buddy. That's my best buddy, and I broke his heart this morning when he texted me all excited about the new He-Man trailer, and I just had to be like, I didn't think it was that great. Sorry about that, buddy. Sorry, Jason. He was like, I got this text from Jason, and he was like, you have to tell me what you thought of the new He-Man trailer. And I was like, I didn't really. I thought it was all right, I guess. I didn't really, like I'm still going to watch the show, but it just didn't really do anything for me. And I could feel his heart just turning to dust. I'm so sorry. Oh, Steve Schmaling. I saw you asked Schmaling. Sorry, Schmaling. Sorry about that, Steve. Steve Schmaling. Thank you for reminding me because I totally forgot. I loved He-Man, but did you like any other 80s cartoons? Yeah, and I saw that you posted that earlier, and I was going to ask, and then I was going to answer it, and I forgot. I watched a little bit of G.I. Joe. I wasn't nearly into G.I. Joe as much as I was into He-Man. Of course, I watched She-Ra when She-Ra started. I watched She-Ra just as much as I watched He-Man. And yeah, I watched a little bit of G.I. Joe. I watched Transformers, and I had Transformers toys. Like I was into Transformers pretty heavy for a while. But I don't think I was there when I was that age, when I was like that. Oh, and like Super Friends, or the legendary Superpower show, which was the version of Super Friends that was on when I was a kid. So I would watch that. They're like Saturday morning type stuff. But the only ones that I was like really super into was He-Man. And the others I would watch and enjoy and still have fond memories of. But He-Man was the one that was like, that was my show, Red Spiral Ray with a super chat says, if slavery somehow happened in the U.S. again, would white supremacists also enslave whites who oppose their ideals? Yes, they would enslave a few token white people just so they could argue that they're not actually racist. That's 100% how that would go down. Yeah, Steve. I've only actually seen the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, and that's because me and Jason reviewed it for late seating. I did not enjoy it at all. Like I didn't like it really that much at all. I thought it was just, yeah. So I can't imagine the other ones are that much better. So yeah, I didn't like the Bay Transformers either. And yeah, Stuart Brown, exactly. For anyone in any doubt about the motives of the slave states, a quick summary of the Confederate Constitution should end all query. Yeah, the Constitution of the Confederacy explicitly affirms white supremacy. And what was his name? I can't think of his name now, but the vice president of the Confederacy, he explicitly said our government rests on the principle of white supremacy. They were white supremacists. They were purposeful, willful, knowing white supremacists. Here's a super chat from Kirok 2011. Thank you again. Says, let's review He-Man 1980's excellent New Adventures of He-Man. Bombed. He-Man movie definitely bombed. 2000 He-Man lacked nuance. So Oh, and Panda 3 Style just became a channel member. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Um, yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the 1990 of the New Adventures. It just didn't have the same appeal that the 80s show had. Yeah, and the follow up. Thanks again for another super chat. Kirak says, I'm not hopeful for the new one. The trailer just didn't do it for me. You know, the trailer just didn't do it for me. And one of the things about the trailer that underwhelmed me is that it reminded me a lot of the 2002 version, the Cartoon Network version, which I just didn't like at all because it was all I remember about it was there were so many fights. All the fights were exactly the same. Everybody was like, a martial artist from a kung fu movie. There was lots of twirling and posing and and it was just horseshit. And it was so boring. And they gave Skeletor this fucking like tragic backstory that he didn't need. And it took itself way too seriously and loaded itself up with so much fucking lore that I didn't give a shit about. And it just, I just didn't like it. It wasn't any fun and it wasn't dramatically compelling. It was just shitty. And the vibe of the trailer reminded me very much of that. And that's worrying. And like I said to Jason when we were talking about it earlier, I just hope the show has jokes. Like Kevin Smith is show running the new series. And I just hope it's funny. Like, I don't think He-Man's not cool. That's another thing about the trailer that kind of made me roll my eyes. Is like they're trying to make He-Man cool. They're doing like a He-Man trailer where like, look how cool it is. I don't want He-Man to. He-Man's not cool. He-Man's silly. He-Man's goofy. Like if you're going to try to sell me a He-Man show and it's premised on, look how cool this is. Like, it's not cool, man. It's like, it's not, it's inherently not cool. It's cool if you're 6. When I was 6, it was the coolest thing ever. I watch it now as a grown-up and I still like it, but I get how goofy it is. It's silly. Like that's the source of its appeal, but you can't make it silly. It has to be awesome, right? It has to be cool. And I'll watch it. Like I'm totally going to watch it. And I hope it's better than the trailer makes it look, but the trailer just didn't. I'll put it this way. I didn't hate the trailer, but the trailer did not make me any more interested. The trailer actually made me less interested in the show than I was before. So there you go. Yeah, you see, Steve Schmeling, exactly. There better be PSAs at the end of the new He-Man. I bet there won't be, and that's too bad because those PSAs were part of what made the original so good. Queer Pro Black asks, why do conservatives pretend to be against cancel culture but ban CRT, gay rights unions, talk of higher wages and rights for women? Seems much hypocritical. Well, I mean, yeah, you answered your own question right there because they're hypocrites. Because they're hypocrites and because, especially after the Trump years, they've realized that their voters don't care. They can be as nakedly hypocritical as they want to be, and their hardcore base doesn't care. They'll look right past it. They don't give a shit. Trump was the biggest hypocrite who ever served in the White House. His voters didn't care. He got more votes last time than he got the first time because they don't care. Even the ones that would acknowledge the hypocrisy would just shrug it off. They don't care. Super chat from Kirok 2011 says the original Skeletor was the bomb. Skeletor to King Randor, come in you royal boob. This is for kids in 1983. Exactly. Skeletor is a goofy cartoon villain. We were talking about the He-Man She-Ra Christmas special on Twitter the other day, or on Twitter yesterday actually. And I mean, Skeletor is not only the best part of that is, I think, the best Skeletor stuff that they ever did. Skeletor is so goddamn funny on that show. When he's with those 2 kids from Earth and they're trying to tell him about Christmas, and Skeletor is just not getting it at all because they're like, Christmas is so nice. And it's, people give each other presents and they sing songs. And Skeletor's like, do they get in fights? It's like, no, they don't get in fights. I like fights. Like, he's just so cartoonishly one-dimensionally evil, you know? And then when they do the Grinch thing with him and his heart grows 3 sizes that day, right? And he saves the kids, even though he's a bad guy. And then the kid's dog is like licking his face. And they're like, see, you're not evil. You really are good. And Skeletor's like, but I don't want to be good. I want to be evil. Like, come on, man. That's my Skeletor. Super chat from Thomas Head, who says Steve should join in the conversation if he is truly open-minded, as his atheist videos allowed him as 2 wrongs don't make a right. I'm not sure what we're talking about. What are we talking about? What conversation am I not joining in on? Oh, 255AD says, you said my question was a worst case scenario. Why are people reluctant to articulate worst case scenarios? I did it partly because I was frustrated by that. I don't know. That's a good point. I mean, I think because people don't like to think about the worst case scenario. Like, people don't like to consider how bad things could get. So we just sort of push it off to the side and go, it'll never happen. You know, I think that might be a big part of it. John Burns says many supporters of Trump are going to court, but don't worry, Trump already agreed to pay other legal fees. Yeah, I'm sure he's gonna follow through on that promise. Oh, for sure. That's yeah. Don't worry, everybody. All you people that are being arrested for being Capitol rioters and storming the halls of Congress. Don't worry, Trump's gonna pay your legal bills, right? Stuart Brown, if a perfect goofy He-Man movie were made, who would you like to see cast as He-Man and Skeletor? I have no idea about He-Man, but I mean, look, Mark Hamill is playing Skeletor in the new one. I think he would be a great Skeletor. And maybe he's going to be a good one in the show. I don't know. But I mean, I think Hamill could be a great Skeletor if they did like silly, goofy Skeletor. And I think he would have a great time doing it. Queer Pro Black says, follow-up question from the last one. Joe Manchin not seeing that. You believe it's on purpose? And what do we do about him and Kristen? I mean, when their time comes, you vote them out, or try to vote them out. Encourage people in their states to vote them out. I don't know how well that's going to work, but that's really all you can do. I think with Manchin, and this is sort of reading his mind, and I don't know if this is the case or not, but if I had to guess, I would say part of it with Manchin is that he really is just that clueless and thinks that bipartisanship is still possible and is still something to be looked for, even with how over the cliff the Republican Party is. But I do think part of it is also that he kind of likes being in that position. He likes being the guy that everybody else has to turn to. He likes being the guy that, well, if I don't approve it, then it's not going to happen. Like, I think he probably likes being in that position, and so does Christian Cinema to a degree, I'm sure. I think I would bet it's a combination of that. But like I said, I can't read their minds. I don't know. But if I had to guess, I would say it's probably something like that. Super chat from John Burns, who says residential schools were started by the federal government through the Indian Act in 1876. The only organization large enough to administer the schools were the Church of Canada, both Anglican and Catholic. Well, I mean, it seems to me that the federal government should have been doing that itself. Seems kind of shitty for the federal government to pass a law saying we're going to have these schools and it's the law. It's been mandated by legislation, and then said we're not going to do it. You, Catholic Church, you do it. It's like, no, the government should. If you're going to pass a law that says there need to be schools, well, then you better be building some schools, motherfucker. Dana says you should make PSAs about using Bitcoin to buy marijuana vapes, and you can do them in Skeletor's voice. Invest in crypto, everybody. That Skeletor would be huge into crypto. That on Eternia, Skeletor, there would be like Skull Coin or some shit, or Snake Mountain Coin or whatever. There would be some kind of Skeletor cryptocurrency, and that would be one of his evil schemes to get everybody in Eternia to invest in crypto. Skeletor would be all over that shit, because not only, here's the thing to know about Skeletor. And this is why he would be super into cryptocurrency. Not only is he evil, he's not smart, like at all. He's not a criminal mastermind. He's the biggest fucking clueless doofus on that planet. So he would be major into cryptocurrency, major. Pedro Noguera says, what early 80s cartoon should be rebooted? He-Man, but do it good. Just do a good He-Man. I don't know. Like I was saying, I mean, there were other cartoons that I was really into. That I guess could be, that could be a good reboot, but none that come to mind. What's the one, Jason? What's the one that you're always saying that you really liked that you think should be rebooted? Was it Thundar the Barbarian? Which I think I watched a little bit, but I don't think I watched it as much as you did. Kirok 2011. What about Silverhawks? I don't think I ever watched Silverhawks. I don't think I ever watched Silverhawks, so I can't speak to whether I would want to have it rebooted or not. Okay, we're past 8 o'clock, so I'm go. Oh, Centurions, that might be a good one. We're past 8 o'clock, so I'm going to start wrapping up. I'm going to bring the festivities to a close. So if anybody has some final questions, you can go ahead and throw them in the chat, and I'll answer a few before we go. But to everybody, thanks for the questions and thanks for the super chats and everything. I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to remind everybody about the charity links, of course, that Some Random Geek has been posting about in the chat, and he just posted the charity links there. And I see he also posted links to Phoenix and Joanna's links in the chat. Please help out Phoenix and Joanna in particular, and also just check out the charity links, charitylinks.page. It's linked in the description, and help out some friends of ours. There's PayPal links and fundraisers and bail funds and legal defense funds and stuff like that you can help some people out with. If you want to help me out, don't forget that you can support me by going to patreon.com/. I'm gonna get to your super chat, John. I'm gonna come back to it. Just I want to get my plugs out of the way. Hold on. Anyway, you can support me by becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives, or you can become a member of the channel by clicking the join button that is right there down below the video, right here on the YouTube page, and become a supporter at one of the membership tiers. And if you are neither a patron nor a channel member, it's completely up to you. I'm not pushing people toward one over the other. If it's easier for you to just click the join button and become a channel member, that's wonderful. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. If it's better for you to do it through Patreon, do it that way. I appreciate the support in whatever form it comes. And thank you all so much, those of you who are patrons and members, and to all of you who are thinking about it or are going to be. Thank you so much for your support and your generosity. And also don't forget about the podcasts that I co-host alongside the brilliant and hilarious Jason Harding, who has been with us in the chat tonight, and also Dana Cole, who is also brilliant and hilarious and has also been with us in the chat tonight. I co-host Late Seating along with Jason, which is the movie review podcast where we give classic films a fresh look and see if they deserve their reputation, whether the reputation is good or bad. Our most recent episode is our review of MASH, the absolutely awful, irredeemable piece of crap that has somehow become a classic film. You can listen to us trash MASH on the most recent episode of Lead Seating. And also, of course, the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast that Jason and I and Dana are all on. And we all play characters who are low-ranking officers aboard a certain famous Federation starship in the 24th century as it begins its continuing mission to explore strange new worlds and seek out new life and new civilization. It's more like James Earl Jones and Patrick Stewart, isn't it? Probably couldn't have fucked that up anymore if I had tried. Anyway, the Ensign's Log is an awesome show. We have a great time doing it. The new episode of the Ensign's Log just went up today, and it is hilarious, if I do say so myself. So check it out, especially if you like my character hurting himself. This one is an all-time classic of Steve hurting himself. So check out the Ensign's Log and Late Seating and all of the great Let Me Listen podcasts at letmelistenpodcast.com. And there are links in the description. So there you go. And now, John Burns, my friend, I will answer your super chat. And your super chat was, if you get rid of the filibuster just in time for the Republicans could take control of the House and the Senate, isn't that the worst case scenario? Yeah, maybe not the worst case scenario, but it's pretty fucking bad. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Like it's not good. It's not good at all. Yeah. And yeah, I thought it was Thundar, Jason. I thought it was Thundar. You've mentioned it a couple times before. But anyway, all right, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining me. I will be back. Dana and I will be back to watch The Forsaken of the episode of Deep Space Nine on Wednesday. And then a week from tonight, Dana and I will be back again to do another live stream together where we will talk about the next chapter of The Other Westmore. We'll be doing chapter 4 of The Other Westmore. That's a week from tonight. Monday is another Ask a Professional YouTuber that goes up in the morning, my time. And then Wednesday will also be another Trek Actually, the next Trek Actually video, which is on the topic of, is data actually too dangerous for Starfleet? I'm shooting that tomorrow, probably. I've got it all written and ready to go. So yeah, should be a good week next week. Hope you all have a good night the rest of tonight. Hope you all have a good weekend. And I will see you later. Thanks for hanging out with me, everybody. Take care.